The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched wide enough to hold 1,000 beings. Its walls glowed with soft blue light and the ceiling showed the stars beyond. 17 species sat in their designated places, each one older than human civilization. Some had bodies like crystals. Others looked like walking plants or creatures made of living metal. They all watched the human standing alone in the center of the chamber. Ambassador Chen Wei stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back. His dark suit looked plain compared to the flowing robes and shimmering armor of the alien delegates around him. He had served Earth for 30 years, always keeping his face calm even when his heart raced. Today his heart beat faster than ever before. High Arbiter Velshan rose from the central throne. The being towered 3 meters tall, its body made of transparent crystal that caught and bent the light. When it spoke, its voice echoed like wind through a canyon. Ambassador Chen of Earth, the Galactic Council has completed its investigation. Your species has violated the Weapons Accord of 2301. You have developed forbidden technology. You have armed your colonies beyond permitted levels. You have refused our inspectors access to your facilities. Chen said nothing. He knew what was coming. The Council offers humanity a choice. Surrender control of your outer colonies to Council authority. Accept protective custody for your home world. Allow full inspection of all military assets. Or face the combined might of the Council Armada. Whispers filled the chamber. The Dravix delegate, a creature covered in blue scales, clicked its mandibles in what Chen recognized as laughter. The Korthan representative, a being of living stone, rumbled its approval. Only the Kryn delegate, Ambassador Scylla, kept her 4 eyes fixed on Chen with something that looked like sadness. Chen activated his wrist communicator. A hologram appeared above his hand, showing documents and data streams. High Arbiter, these accusations are false. Earth has followed every regulation. Our colonies are defended within legal parameters. We have nothing to hide. Velshan's crystal form flashed red. We have evidence, human. Your species cannot be trusted. You come from a world that knew only war. You fought each other for thousands of years. Even now you build weapons first and ask questions later. We seek only to defend ourselves, Chen said quietly. Then you will accept our terms. Velshan gestured, and new holograms appeared throughout the chamber. They showed the Council Armada, thousands of ships gathering at rally points across the galaxy, massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets, carrier vessels holding entire fighter wings, destroyer flotillas that had pacified rebellions on 100 worlds. The message was clear. Resistance was impossible. You have 48 hours to respond, Velshan announced. The Council expects your cooperation. We have no wish to harm humanity. But we will have compliance. Chen bowed his head slightly. I must consult with my government. This decision is beyond my authority. 48 hours, not a moment more. Velshan sat back down and the crystal throne dimmed. The audience was over. Chen walked toward the exit, his footsteps silent on the smooth floor. Other delegates avoided his eyes. Some looked at him with pity, others with contempt. To them, humanity was a child species, barely 50 years in the Council. They had nothing that could challenge the established order. As Chen reached the doorway, a hand touched his arm. Ambassador Scylla pulled him aside into a small alcove. The Kryn looked like a tall, slender human covered in silver fur, with 4 eyes arranged vertically on her face. She leaned close and whispered, They have already mobilized, Chen. Your 48 hours is theater. The Armada moves toward your space now. They expect you to surrender because they think you have no choice. Chen felt ice in his stomach. Why tell me this? Because the Council has become corrupt. They fear your species, not because you are dangerous, but because you think differently. You question everything. You refuse to accept that this is how things must be. Scylla glanced around, making sure no one watched. The Kryn have not forgotten. The Council subjugated us 3,000 years ago. We had no choice but to join. We thought you might be different. We are, Chen said softly. Then prove it. But know this, if you fight alone. No species will stand with you against the Council. Not openly. Scylla released his arm and walked away, disappearing into the crowds. Chen made his way to the human embassy section of the station. His staff waited for him, their faces full of questions. He ignored them all and went straight to the secure communication room. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. Soundproofing and jamming fields activated automatically. He sat at the console and entered a code he had memorized years ago, a code he hoped never to use. The screen flickered and showed the seal of the United Earth Defense Command. A woman appeared on the screen. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's highest military authority. Her hair was gray, her face marked by years of service. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. "Ambassador Chen, I've been expecting your call." "They're coming, Admiral, regardless of our answer. They want submission or destruction." Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Then we give them neither. Activate Protocol Midnight Sun. Are you certain?" "Once we begin, there's no turning back." "I'm certain. The Council believes we're weak. They're about to learn the difference between weakness and patience." Okonkwo leaned forward. "Send the standard diplomatic response. Ask for negotiations. Request more time. Let them think we're desperate. And if they refuse, they will refuse. That's what we're counting on." The Admiral's expression hardened. "We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Council. They think they know us. They're wrong." Chen took a deep breath. "Protocol Midnight Sun confirmed. May we be forgiven for what comes next. History will judge us by what we preserve, not by what we destroy." Okonkwo saluted. "Earth stands ready, Ambassador. Show them nothing but fear. Let the Council believe they've already won." The transmission ended. Chen sat in the silence of the secure room, feeling the weight of billions of lives in his hands. Somewhere beyond the stars, Earth was moving. Ships were launching. Weapons were charging. And the Council had no idea what was coming. He returned to his office and began drafting humanity's official response. It would be polite, desperate, and exactly what the Council expected to hear. Let them enjoy their certainty for a few more hours. The galaxy was about to change forever. The war room beneath Geneva looked nothing like the Council chambers. There were no glowing walls or artistic displays. Just gray concrete, reinforced steel, and rows of holographic screens showing every corner of human space. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood in the center, her hands behind her back, watching data flow across the displays. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Marcus Zhang stepped forward. He was younger than the Admiral, with sharp features and the confident stride of someone who had never lost a simulation. "All civilian evacuation protocols are active. We're pulling non-essential personnel from the outer colonies. Colonial defense forces are at full readiness. The Hidden Fleet has received activation codes. How long until the Council reaches Sol?" 30 hours, maybe less. They're not trying to hide their approach. They want us to see them coming." Okonkwo nodded. Around the room, holographic displays showed the truth that the Council had never discovered. When humanity joined the Galactic Council 47 years ago, they had made a decision. They showed the aliens only what they wanted to be seen. The Council saw human ships that used their technology, plasma weapons, energy shields, standard military doctrine copied from species that had been fighting the same way for thousands of years. The Council taught humanity their methods, confident that young species needed guidance, but humanity had never stopped building their own way. "Show me the real fleet," Okonkwo said. Zhang touched a control, and new images filled the screens, ships that had been built in secret, hidden in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt. Facilities disguised as mining operations, shipyards that looked abandoned from a distance but hummed with activity inside hollowed-out asteroids. 237 warships, built using human principles, kinetic weapons that fired metal slugs at a fraction of the speed of light, nuclear missiles that the Council considered primitive, electronic warfare suites designed to hack and confuse systems that had never faced such attacks. Each ship was smaller than Council dreadnoughts, but faster and harder to detect. "They think we're weak," Zhang said. "They're about to learn the difference between weak and smart." A door opened and Dr. Amara Osei entered. She was Earth's leading weapons scientist, a small woman with tired eyes and hands stained with work. She carried a datapad and looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Admiral, the weapon systems are ready. All of them. The mass drivers? Operational. We have 17 platforms scattered through the outer system. Each one can accelerate projectiles to 0.7 light speed. The Council's energy shields weren't designed for kinetic impacts. They'll cut through them like paper. The electronic warfare packages, ready to deploy. Council ships communicate on quantum networks they believe are unhackable. They're wrong. We've been inside their systems for 3 years. We can make their sensors lie, their weapons misfire, their shields drop at the worst possible moment." Okonkwo turned to face the room. Other officers had gathered now. Captains who would lead the fleet. Marines who would board enemy vessels, engineers who had spent years preparing for this day. They all watched her, waiting. "Before I give the final order, you all need to understand what we're doing," she said. Her voice carried across the room, strong and clear. "When we joined the council, we studied their history. Every species that resisted them was crushed. Every species that showed strength too early was monitored and controlled. So we played weak. We built their ships using their technology. We trained our forces in their tactics. We let them believe they understood us." She gestured to the screens. "But humanity has been fighting wars since we lived in caves. We never stopped studying warfare. We never stopped improving. While the council species fought each other in neat formations with agreed-upon rules, humans were perfecting asymmetric warfare. Guerrilla tactics, deception, psychological operations. We learned from every conflict in our history." Zhang spoke up. "The council hasn't fought a real war in 500 years. They've only pacified inferior species. They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy that refuses to play by their rules." "Exactly," Okonkwo agreed. "They're about to remember." A new face appeared on the main screen. President Adeyemi, broadcasting from an undisclosed location. The president of United Earth looked older than her 60 years, the weight of leadership clear in her expression. "Admiral Okonkwo, the Civilian Council has voted. It was unanimous. We will not surrender. Protocol Midnight Sun is authorized." "Understood, Madam President." "Sarah," the president said, using her first name, "bring our people home safely. Show the council that humanity cannot be broken." "I will, ma'am." The transmission ended. Okonkwo turned back to her officers. "You all know your orders. Commander Zhang, you'll lead the outer system defense. Use the automated platforms and strike and fade tactics. Bleed them as they come in. Make them pay for every kilometer." "Yes, Admiral." "Dr. Osi, you'll coordinate electronic warfare from here. I want their communications chaos, their sensors blind, their weapons unreliable. They won't know what hit them," Osi promised. "Captain Williams, prepare the Marine boarding teams. The Council hasn't fought ship-to-ship combat in living memory. Their vessels aren't designed for internal defense. Show them what humans can do in close quarters." A scarred woman in combat armor saluted. "With pleasure, Admiral." Okonkwo walked to the central display. It showed Sol System with Earth at its heart. Her home, the birthplace of humanity. She had sworn an oath to defend it, and she would honor that oath even if it meant her death. The Council believes they'll arrive. We'll see their numbers, and we'll surrender. They think this war is already over. They're wrong. She looked around at every face in the room. We're going to hurt them, badly. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't kneel, and when this is over, they'll never threaten us again. "What about casualties?" someone asked. "Our forces are outnumbered 15-1. We'll take losses, heavy losses, but we've planned for this. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic has been designed to maximize damage while minimizing our exposure. The Council fights like it's a game. For us, this is survival. That gives us an edge they can't match." Okonkwo activated her personal communicator. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Colonial governors receiving orders, fleet commanders breaking encryption seals, soldiers saying goodbye to families. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone had a role to play. "One more thing," Okonkwo said. "When we win, and we will win, we don't become conquerors. We're not fighting to rule the galaxy. We're fighting to be free. Remember that in the heat of battle. We are not monsters. We are humans defending our home." The room filled with voices, officers confirming orders and preparing to deploy. Okonkwo watched the main display where the Council's fleet appeared as red icons moving steadily toward Sol. They came in perfect formation, confident and arrogant. Let them come, she thought. Let them think they've already won. Zhang approached her quietly. Admiral, there's still time to try diplomacy. Maybe if we... The Council wants submission, Marcus, not peace. They fear what we might become. They want to break us while we're still weak. She shook her head. We gave them 47 years of cooperation. We followed their rules. We proved we could be trusted. And still they demand we bow no. We show them the truth now. What truth? That humanity doesn't surrender. We adapt, we overcome. We survive. Okonkwo smiled, cold and determined. The Council is about to learn that being newcomers doesn't make us weak. It makes us unpredictable. Across the solar system, human ships began to move. Not toward the enemy, but into positions the Council would never expect, hiding in asteroid fields, drifting silent in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The trap was set. The stage was prepared, and when the Council Armada arrived, they would find something they had never encountered before, an enemy that refused to die. Admiral Thalric stood on the bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Judgment, watching the display screens with satisfaction. His species, the Dravix, had served the Council for 8,000 years. He had commanded fleets for 300 of those years. He had pacified 17 rebellious worlds. This mission would be the easiest of his career. Behind him, the Council Armada stretched across space. 3,200 vessels from 7 different species, dreadnoughts that could bombard planets, carriers filled with fighter craft, destroyers, frigates, and support ships creating the most powerful military force assembled in a century. Status? He asked his second-in-command. We are approaching the edge of the Sol system. Human forces have not responded to our approach. Their known fleet consists of 43 vessels, all using Council-standard technology. They are no threat. Thalrix clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. They know they cannot win. They will surrender when they see our might. High Arbiter Velshawn appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Nexus Prime. Admiral Thalrix. The human ambassador has sent another request for negotiations. He begs for more time, as expected. They are afraid. Do not underestimate them. Humanity has a history of fighting themselves, Thalrix interrupted. They are primitive, Arbiter. Their weapons are crude. Their tactics are simple. We will be in Earth orbit within hours, and they will surrender without firing a shot. See that they do. The Council wishes to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The transmission ended. Thalrix turned back to his displays, already planning the occupation. Humans would be placed under protective custody. Their weapons would be confiscated. In a generation, they would forget they ever wanted independence. It was how the Council had always operated. Admiral. The sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. I'm detecting. The ship shook violently. Alarms blared across the bridge. On the screens, Thalrix saw 3 Council destroyers suddenly explode, torn apart by impacts he hadn't seen coming. Report. Kinetic strikes. Coming from multiple vectors. I can't get a lock on the sources. Another explosion. A dreadnought to their left took a hit that punched through its shields and armor like they were nothing. The massive ship broke apart, atmosphere venting into space along with thousands of crew members. Shields up. All ships defensive formation. But the attacks continued. Invisible projectiles traveling so fast that sensors could barely track them. They came from asteroids, from empty space, from directions that should have contained nothing. Each impact carried devastating force, the kinetic energy of a small mountain moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The Council's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and energy weapons, did nothing against solid matter moving that fast. The projectiles simply punched through, carrying their momentum deep into ship hulls before the energy released in catastrophic explosions. How many? Thalrix demanded. 47 ships destroyed, 62 damaged. The attacks are coming from automated platforms. The humans have seeded the outer system with weapons. Destroy those platforms. We're trying, Admiral. But they're hidden in asteroids and... The ship shook again, this time from a different kind of attack. Every screen on the bridge flickered. Displays showed contradictory information. Sensors reported enemy ships that weren't there. What is happening? Electronic warfare, Admiral? They're inside our systems. I don't know how, but they're making our equipment lie to us. Thalrix felt cold fear for the first time in decades. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. The Council fought in open space with clear sensor readings. Fleets maneuvered in formation. Weapons fired in predictable patterns. There were rules, protocols. The humans weren't following any rules. Push forward. We must reach the inner system. The Armada accelerated, taking losses every kilometer. The automated platforms were relentless, firing from hiding and then going silent before they could be targeted. Council ships began firing at asteroids randomly, trying to destroy the hidden weapons. It was ineffective and wasteful. As they passed Mars orbit, new contacts appeared on sensors. Small craft moving fast. Dozens of them. Then hundreds, fighter craft. The sensor officer reported. Human fighter craft. Impossible. The Council abandoned fighters centuries ago. They're inefficient. But the fighters were real and they swarmed the Council fleet like insects. They were tiny compared to the great ships, but they moved with a speed and agility that the larger vessels couldn't match. They fired missiles, primitive chemical rockets tipped with nuclear warheads. Council point defense systems designed to stop energy weapons struggled against the sheer number of targets. Missiles got through. Nuclear explosions blossomed across shields, overloading them with electromagnetic pulses and raw force. "Our shields can't handle this," someone shouted. "The radiation is bleeding through." "These tactics are barbaric," Thalric snarled. "They fight without honor." His second-in-command looked at him with all four eyes wide. "Admiral, with respect, they fight to win. We need to adapt our tactics." Before Thalrix could respond, something changed. The random attack suddenly became coordinated. Every automated platform fired at once. Every fighter focused on specific targets. And from hiding places throughout the system, larger ships appeared. They weren't Council standard vessels. They were human designs, sleek and angular, covered in sensor-absorbent plating. They moved in patterns that made no sense, breaking every rule of fleet tactics the Council had developed over millennia. 237 capital ships. The sensor officer's voice was nearly a scream. "They were hiding. We never saw them." The human ships didn't engage in formation. They struck from unexpected angles, targeting the Armada's weaknesses. They used the Council's own ships as cover, firing through gaps in the formation. They employed electronic warfare to make Council ships target their own allies. One human destroyer accelerated directly toward a Council dreadnought. Thalrix watched in horror as the smaller ship, already heavily damaged, slammed into the larger vessel at full speed. The impact destroyed both ships, but it also disrupted an entire section of the Council formation. "They're using suicide attacks," someone gasped. "No," his second-in-command corrected. "Look at the crew manifest. That ship was already evacuated. They're using unmanned vessels as weapons." Another human tactic. Another violation of how warfare was supposed to be conducted. The battle raged for hours. The Council Armada, designed to overwhelm through numbers, found itself being dismantled piece by piece. The humans didn't try to win through direct confrontation. They bled the fleet with 1,000 small cuts, never staying in one place long enough to be effectively targeted. By the time the Armada reached Earth orbit, Thalrix had lost over 900 ships. His formation was in chaos. His communications were compromised. His shields were depleted, and the humans showed no sign of stopping. "Admiral, we need to withdraw. We need to regroup and—" "No, we have superior numbers still. We will—" Every screen on the bridge suddenly went dark. Then they lit up again, showing a single image. A human woman in a dark blue uniform. She stood on the bridge of her own ship, and her eyes were hard as diamonds. "Council Armada, this is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Command. You came to our home. You came to subjugate us. You thought we would surrender." She leaned forward. "You were wrong. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten humanity. You will learn why we don't start fights. We finish them." The transmission cut off, and from behind Earth's moon, more ships appeared. The human home fleet, 200 vessels strong, emerged from hiding where they had been waiting. Thalrix stared at the display, his mandibles clicking in distress. He had fought for 3 centuries. He had studied warfare for longer than humans had known space travel. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. The humans didn't fight like any species he had ever encountered. They used deception. They sacrificed pawns to take greater pieces. They turned every rule of civilized warfare into a weakness they could exploit. "High Arbiter Velshan is demanding a report," his communications officer said, quietly. Thalrix looked at the carnage on his screens. Council ships burning, debris fields where proud vessels had once sailed, and the human fleet, smaller but unbroken, moving to engage. "Tell the Arbiter," he said slowly, "that we have made a terrible mistake." The bridge of UEDC flagship Indomitable hummed with controlled chaos. Officers called out status reports. Holographic displays showed the battle unfolding across Earth orbit. And at the center of it all, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo watched her enemy with the patience of a hunter. "The Council fleet is trying to reform their lines," Commander Zhang reported. "They still outnumber us 10 to 1. "Numbers don't matter if they can't coordinate," Okonkwo replied. "Dr. Osei, status on their communications?" From Earth below, Osei's voice came through. "We own their network, Admiral. Every order they send, we see. Half the time we can modify it before it reaches its destination. Their fleet commanders are receiving contradictory instructions. Good, keep them confused. Zhang, deploy the capital ships. Target their command vessels. Yes, Admiral. On the main display, the human dreadnoughts moved forward. They were massive ships, built around a single weapon. A spinal-mounted mass accelerator that ran the entire length of the vessel. Each one could fire a tungsten slug the size of a bus at 70% of light speed. The first dreadnought, Defiant, locked on to the Council's supercarrier Eternal Justice. The mass accelerator charged, drawing power from the ship's reactor. Then it fired. The projectile crossed the distance in seconds. The Council carrier's shields flared, tried to deflect the impact and failed completely. The slug punched through the shield, through the armor and through the entire length of the ship. It exited the far side, carrying pieces of the carrier with it. The Eternal Justice broke apart, its reactor breaching in a brief new sun. That's how it's done, Zhang said with satisfaction. More human ships engaged. Unlike the Council's orderly formations, the human fleet moved in what looked like chaos. But it was planned chaos. Each ship knew its role. Destroyers harried larger targets, frigates protected the dreadnoughts, and the fighters, thousands of small craft piloted by humans who had trained their whole lives for this, swarmed through gaps in the Council defenses. Lieutenant James Okafor flew his fighter through a storm of plasma fire. His wingmen stayed close, moving as a unit. They had trained together for 5 years. They knew each other's moves without speaking. Target the shield generators on that dreadnought. His squadron leader ordered, copy that. Okafor pushed his fighter to maximum acceleration, dodging fire from point defense systems. Council ships weren't designed to deal with small, fast targets. Their weapons tracked too slowly. Their sensors focused on capital ships. He lined up his shot and fired. The missile streaked forward, its nuclear warhead armed. It impacted the shield generator, and the explosion cascaded across the Council dreadnought's defensive screen. The shields flickered and died. Shields down! All units fire at will! A dozen human destroyers opened fire, their railguns sending streams of metal slugs into the now vulnerable dreadnought. The great ship shuddered under the impacts, armor plating cracking and venting atmosphere. But the Council wasn't finished. Their ships might be confused, but they were still numerous and powerful. A Council battle group managed to coordinate and focus fire on a human cruiser. Plasma beams and particle weapons converged. The cruiser's shields collapsed. Its hull burned. Okafor watched the cruiser die, taking 400 crew with it. The sight filled him with cold rage. These weren't simulations. These were his people dying. All fighters form up on me, he ordered his squadron. We're going after their command ship. That's suicide, Lieutenant. Maybe. But if we take out their admiral, the rest of the fleet falls apart. Follow me, he didn't wait for confirmation. His fighter dove toward the Council flagship Eternal Judgment, weaving through defensive fire. His squadron followed, trusting his lead. The flagship was massive, 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. Getting close to it meant flying through a storm of fire. Okafor watched his sensors as one of his wingmen took a hit and exploded. Another fighter spiraled away, trailing atmosphere from a ruptured hull. But they got through. Okafor armed his last missile, a special warhead designed by Dr. Osei's team. Not nuclear, electromagnetic pulse. For Earth, he whispered and fired. The missile impacted the flagship's communication array. The EMP burst scrambled every electronic system in that section of the ship. Suddenly, Admiral Thalrix couldn't communicate with his fleet. Okafor tried to pull away, but plasma fire caught his fighter's wing. His cockpit filled with alarms. His engines died. He was drifting, powerless, directly in the path of the Council fleet. Lieutenant Okafor is down, someone called over the channel. I'm okay, he transmitted. Ejecting. Get clear and complete the mission. He pulled the ejection handle. The cockpit blew free and tumbled through space. His squadron flew past, continuing the attack. Okafor watched from his tiny escape pod as the battle raged around him. He had done his part. Now it was up to the others. On the Indomitable, Okonkwo saw the results of the fighter attack. The Council flagship was blind and deaf. Their formation was collapsing. Their ships were firing randomly, sometimes hitting their own vessels. Now, she ordered, all ships execute Prometheus Protocol. Zhang looked at her. Admiral, that means, I know what it means. We can't win through conventional warfare, not against these numbers, but we can make them remember us. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Okonkwo. You know your duty. For Earth, for humanity. Show them that we will never surrender. Throughout the human fleet, damaged ships changed course. Vessels that were already dying, their crews evacuated, locked onto Council targets and accelerated to ramming speed. The first was the destroyer Prometheus, heavily damaged and already losing atmosphere. It aimed at a Council carrier and burned its engines to maximum. The carrier tried to evade, but it was too slow. The destroyer struck it amidships, the impact releasing all the energy stored in its reactor. Both ships vanished in an explosion that could be seen from Earth's surface. More followed. Human ships that couldn't be saved became weapons. They rammed into Council vessels, trading one dying ship for multiple enemy kills. It was brutal. It was desperate. But it was effective. The Council fleet began to panic. Their ships started withdrawing without orders, captains making independent decisions to flee. The formation that had looked so impressive hours ago was now a scattered mob. They're breaking, Zhang reported. We've destroyed over 1,400 of their ships. Our losses are at 38 capital ships and countless fighters. Okonkwo closed her eyes briefly. 38 ships, thousands of crew, and they were winning. Order all ships to pursue fleeing vessels. We don't let them regroup. We push them until they're completely broken. The human fleet surged forward. They were exhausted. Their ammunition was running low, but they pressed the attack, giving the Council no chance to recover. On the Council flagship, Admiral Thalrix finally restored communications. What he saw on his screens made him feel something he had never experienced before. Defeat. All ships, he transmitted. Retreat. Full retreat. Fall back to Rally Point Sigma. High Arbiter Velshan's voice came through, angry and demanding. Admiral? You will not retreat. You will. We are defeated, Arbiter. The humans have destroyed half our fleet. They fight with tactics we have never encountered. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. If we stay, they will destroy us all. You will obey. Thalrix cut the transmission. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to save their ship. Through the viewing ports, he could see the wreckage of the once mighty armada. The humans had done the impossible. A newcomer species with a fraction of the Council's numbers had defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. As the Council fleet retreated, jumping to faster-than-light travel in panicked groups, Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. Cease pursuit. Let them go. We've made our point. Zhang looked at the casualty report scrolling across his screen. Over 40,000 dead on our side. Was it worth it? Okonkwo watched Earth slowly rotating below them. Ask me that question when the Council comes asking for peace. We didn't want this war, but we finished it. Throughout the solar system, human ships began recovery operations. Rescue pods were collected. Damaged vessels limped back to dock, and on Earth, billions of people watched the skies, seeing the evidence of humanity's victory written in the debris of fallen Council ships. The battle was over. But the war, Okonkwo knew, was just beginning. The Council would not accept this defeat easily. They would regroup, adapt, and return. But next time they would come not as conquerors but as negotiators. Humanity had earned that much, written in fire and blood across the void. 2 weeks after the Battle of Terra, the Great Hall of Nexus Prime looked different. The chamber still glowed with soft blue light, but the atmosphere had changed. Fear hung in the air like smoke. The 17 species that had once sat in judgment now sat in uncertainty. Ambassador Chen Wei walked into the hall, but not as a supplicant this time. He walked as an equal. Behind him came Admiral Okonkwo in full uniform, her medals catching the light. The human delegation took their places at the center of the chamber, and this time no one laughed. More delegates had arrived. Species that had been subjugated by the Council decades or centuries ago. The Vryn, whose colony worlds had been taken. The Talask, who had been forced to give up their military. The Nathari, whose government had been replaced by Council overseers. All of them sat in seats that had never existed before, invited by humanity. High Arbiter Velshan was gone. The crystalline being had been removed from power by its own species, who feared what humanity might do in revenge. A new arbiter sat in the central throne, Ambassador Scylla of the Kryn, the one species that had warned humanity of the attack. This council is now in session, Scylla announced. Her voice was steady, but Chen could see the weariness in her 4 eyes. We gathered to discuss the future of galactic governance. Admiral Thalric stood, his blue scales dull with shame. The Council Armada attacked humanity without just cause. We believed fabricated evidence. We sought to subjugate a peaceful species. We were wrong. The old warrior looked at Chen. I offer my species formal apology and submit myself for judgment. Chen nodded slowly. Your apology is noted, Admiral. But we do not seek revenge. We seek change. Then what do you want? A Dravix delegate demanded. You have humiliated the Council. You have destroyed our fleet. What more? We want justice, Okonkwo interrupted. Her voice cut through the chamber like a blade. For ourselves and for every species the Council has threatened or conquered. We want a government that represents all people, not just the powerful. We want laws that apply equally, not rules that favor the old over the new. Sila gestured to the investigation results displayed on screens around the chamber. The evidence against humanity was fabricated by members of the Council Security Division. They feared human advancement and sought to eliminate the threat before it could challenge the established order. 7 officials have been arrested. More investigations are ongoing. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates looked shocked. Others looked guilty. The Council has operated as a hegemony for too long, Chen said, his voice calm but firm. When we joined, we believed in the promise of cooperation. We believed that different species could work together for the common good. Instead, we found a system that rewards obedience and punishes independence. You speak of cooperation, a Korthan delegate rumbled, but you destroyed our fleet. You killed thousands. We defended ourselves, Okonkwo replied. We did not want war. We sought every diplomatic solution. But when you came to subjugate us, we fought. And we won. That is not aggression. That is survival. A Vryn delegate stood, her tentacles waving in agitation. The Council gave us technology, protection, stability. Without the Council, there would be chaos. Without the Council, a new voice said, there would be freedom. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was a delegate from the Talask, a species that had been peaceful before the Council forced them to disarm. My people were told we needed protection. We were told the Council would keep us safe. Instead, when we disagreed with Council policy, they occupied our worlds. They said it was for our own good. But occupation is still occupation, no matter what words you use, more voices rose. Species that had been silent for decades suddenly spoke. They talked about unfair trade agreements, about resource extraction that benefited Council core worlds, about how younger species were always kept subordinate to older ones. The chamber erupted into arguments. Sila let it continue for several minutes before calling for order. Enough. This is exactly why we need reform. She looked at Chen. What does humanity propose? Chen stepped forward. He had spent the last 2 weeks preparing for this moment, working with Earth's best diplomats and strategists. We propose a restructuring. The Galactic Council should become a true federation. Each species, regardless of age or military power, gets equal representation. Decisions require majority consent, not just agreement from the powerful. That would paralyze the government, someone objected. No, Chen said. It would make the government fair. Right now, 7 species control everything. 3,000 species have no voice at all. That must change, Okonkwo added, and there must be limitations on military power. No species should be able to threaten another with overwhelming force. The Council Armada must be restructured into a true defense force, not a tool of oppression. You mean you want to weaken us, a delegate accused. We want to ensure that what happened to humanity cannot happen to anyone else, Okonkwo countered. Your Armada attacked us because you could. You faced no consequences, no oversight, no checks on your power. That must end. The debates continued for hours. Some species supported the reforms. Others fought against them. But slowly, gradually, a consensus began to form. Too many species had suffered under the old system. Too many had been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge it. Humanity had proven they were that strong. Finally, after 2 days of discussion, Sila called for a vote. All in favor of restructuring the Galactic Council into a representative federation with equal voting rights and limited military authority. The vote was not unanimous. 7 species voted against it, the ones that had held power for so long. But 23 species voted in favor. The old council was dissolved. The new Galactic Federation was born. Chen stood at the viewing port of Nexus Prime. watching the ships come and go. Admiral Okonkwo joined him, her uniform jacket unbuttoned in a rare moment of relaxation. "We did it," she said quietly. "We survived," Chen corrected. "But we paid a heavy price, 43,000 dead, 60,000 wounded, 23 ships completely destroyed." Okonkwo's voice was heavy with grief. "I see their faces every night. Every single one. They didn't die for nothing. Because of them, humanity is free. Because of them, other species have hope. I know, but it still hurts." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Chen said, "The president wants you to join the new Federation Defense Force. They're asking humans to help reorganize the military. And you? What will you do?" "I'll stay here as Earth's permanent representative. Someone needs to make sure the reforms actually happen. The old guard will try to regain power. We need to be vigilant." Okonkwo smiled sadly. "So we both keep fighting. Just with different weapons, that's what humans do. We adapt, we persist. We never give up." 5 years later, the changes were obvious. Earth hosted the first interspecies military academy, where officers from dozens of species learned together. They studied both traditional council tactics and human methods. Some called it revolutionary. Others called it necessary. Commander Marcus Zhang served as an instructor, teaching asymmetric warfare to students who had never heard of such concepts. Dr. Amara Osei shared her research, helping species develop better defensive technology. And thousands of humans served throughout the Federation, not as conquerors but as partners. The galaxy was messier than before. The old system had been stable because it was rigid. The new Federation was chaotic because it was democratic. Species argued, factions formed. Progress was slow and frustrating, but it was also free. On Earth, a memorial stood in Geneva near the UEDC headquarters. It listed every name of every person who had died in the Battle of Terra. Humans and council species alike. Enemy and friend, all remembered together. Admiral Okonkwo visited the memorial on the anniversary of the battle. She was older now, her hair completely gray. She had retired from active service but still advised the Federation military. People called her the savior of Earth, but she never felt like a savior. Just a soldier who had done her duty. She stood before the wall of names, reading them silently. So many lives, so much potential lost, but they had not died in vain. The galaxy was better because of their sacrifice. A young girl approached, maybe 8 years old. She was human, but holding hands with a Kryn child about the same age. They had been playing near the memorial. "Are you Admiral Okonkwo?" the human girl asked. "I am. My teacher says you saved Earth." Okonkwo knelt down to the girl's level. "I didn't save Earth alone. Thousands of people fought, many died. They are the real heroes." "Why did they fight?" "Because some things are worth fighting for. Freedom, justice, the right to choose your own path. The council wanted to take those things from us. We said no." The Kryn child spoke up, her voice soft. "My grandmother says humans are different from other species. She says you don't surrender." Okonkwo smiled. "We're not so different from anyone else. We just refuse to accept that the way things are is the way things must be. We believe in change. We believe that tomorrow can be better than today." The children thanked her and ran off to play. Okonkwo watched them go, feeling something like hope. The council had thought humans would surrender. They had been wrong. Not because humans were better warriors or smarter strategists, but because humanity understood something the council had forgotten. Freedom is not given.